Hey everybody, this is Marty and I'm here to talk a little bit about the Game Boy game system evolution, the history of the Game Boy game system, and I have some of the Game Boy systems out here to kind of demonstrate that evolution. First of all, you have to go way back in time to 1989. That's right, the 80s, to find Nintendo's first version. 1989 they released the Game Boy game system. It was an evolutionary jump, obviously, in handheld game system. For the first time, this was kind of a cartridge-based system that allowed you to plug cartridges and play the games. And this is it right here in its original minty fresh gray version. This was the dot matrix screen with stereo sound, as I said, which was an evolutionary leap forward. You could plug some headphones into this thing, and you had the A and B button right here. If you flip it over, it took 4 AA batteries, and this is the game system that became affectionately known as the brick. In gaming parlance, this is the brick. There's the speaker there, start and select buttons. Not a lot about the A and B buttons have changed over the years. You'll find most of the systems have those, although some have added the X and Y button as well. But it's got a sweet version of Earthworm Jim, which was a fun game back in the day, and this game system was possibly responsible for keeping the battery companies in business during its period. There was millions and millions of these made. Great game system, very cool, and a lot of good memories of myself and my kids playing this game back in the day. They were great, but very heavy game. That's why it's known as the brick. And we'll compare it in a minute to the next iteration, which was, of course, the Game Boy Pocket, which came out. Oh, by the way, there might have been a Japanese release in between here called the Game Boy Light, which was the first attempt at a backlit version. I can't remember the exact time it came out, if it was in between the Pocket and the Color, or the Color and the Advance, but it came out some point in there, and I don't have a copy of that to show you. But here's the next version. This is the Game Boy Pocket, which is very cool because it was lightweight. I got a Rampage in there right now, which is an awesome game if you've ever played that. That was a port from the arcade where you play you're a monster who climbs buildings and eats people and other things. It's just a very cool game. So anyway, you got your classic A and B button, your speaker, but just a much more compact version of the Game Boy, and I'll show you in comparison as I lay them over each other. You can see in thickness generally the size difference here of the Pocket compared to the old Game Boy. And what was really neat, I think, about the Pocket was that it only took 2 AAA batteries now. So smaller batteries, less juice being used up. And I want to say this came out in like 96 or 95 or something like that, but it was awesome, and lots of people bought these as well, and it helped propel Nintendo to the dynasty it is today. Then came the Game Boy Color, which was an awesome leap forward. Again, you've got a color screen back here, except that it's not backlit. It was a great leap forward, and it's kind of hard to see the screen unless you're in the right light, but the fact that it was color was pretty awesome. It was still pretty thin like the old the Pocket, and it took I want to say 4 AAA batteries, but and the battery life was pretty good in this unit too. These versions were still made in Japan, so they're very solid. They're still around today, very well built. I happen to have a copy of Mario in here at the minute, Super Mario Brothers Deluxe, which was a fun game as well. And this is the Pokemon edition of the same version, the Game Boy Color. And it had a blue back, and it was pretty cool. And if you can find these, they're a little bit more rare. This one happens to be in pretty good condition, and so if you look for those, you can find them today. Then came the Game Boy Advance, which I don't have sitting out here right now, but it was the longer version, The screen was set like this, but it was a little bit bigger screen, and it was shaped, you know, it was more of an elongated shape with the buttons on either side. And so, not to discount the Advance, it was nice, and it had color. It was good. But then came an evolutionary leap forward when you get to the Nintendo Game Boy Advance SP. This happens to be a flame red version. But what was great, and what is still great about these game systems, is that one, the cartridge got smaller. So now you had a much smaller cartridge compared to the old cartridge. This Mega Man game's a great game too, but the cartridges were about half the size, which was good. And then, you know, on the old versions, the screens would get worn out because they were exposed. When they sat in kids' pockets, they'd rub everywhere. And with this, the clamshell design, as it's called, closes right up, and it protects your screen and your buttons, and everything is out of the way. And this was the first version to come with a rechargeable battery. So you plug this thing in, and you could recharge the Game Boy. And the battery life on the SP is pretty good. It's pretty awesome. And so this came out in an early version, which was a backlit screen, which was good. We'll show you that here. This is the standard backlit version, the Advanced SP, which came out first. And then after a while, they released a new version. This is the AGS 100, and then came the AGS 101, which, if you put them side by side, can see is a much brighter screen. And you could even set its brightness to a higher level. So very bright screen. This one you could just turn on and off, but this one you could really increase the brightness. You know, really an excellent game, and I have the Super Mario 3 in both of those. And then I want to say came the Game Boy Micro. My history might be a little bit, chronology might be a little bit off. I'm not sure if the early DS was released before the Micro or not, but this is the Micro, and this is awesome. The Micro, the game cartridge fits in the Micro just like that. It's not much bigger than the game cartridge itself. And what was really cool about this is you'd power this on and off, and it had lights that would come on. See those blue lights down at the start and select button? Yeah, those would come on, and that's really cool. I got a version of Mega Man in here right now by Capcom, which is pretty awesome. But these were great little systems. You could stick these in your pocket out of the way and basically take them anywhere. Drawback here is your screen's exposed, so it's hard to find these in really good shape. You got a couple of controls up on top, a left and a right button, your directionals, and then your A and B for mashing. But you could plug your headphones in here and basically do everything you could on an SP, but with a much smaller screen. And then came the DS. Now I don't have a real early version of the DS, but I've got a standard DS that you see. It's pretty prolific out there. You'll see it a lot. And this is the standard DS. I got a copy of Sonic the Hedgehog rolling in here, which, by the way, you have to thank Sega Game Gear for having come out with a color backlit screen before the Nintendo version, way back before the SP came out, although I like the SP much more than the Game Gear. But thank you, Sega, for forcing Nintendo to do that, or to get that out a little earlier. But this is a pretty cool game system too. It folds up, so again the clamshell design comes back, so it hides your screen and your main buttons. It's got volume controls. What was cool about this too is it could play new cartridges, which were much smaller, like that size, the DS cartridge, and you could play the old games as well. So you could play any game that Nintendo had come out with up to that point. That's what's cool about that version of the DS, or the DS Lite. Then there was a couple iterations, and then came the DSi XL, which I have, which is the extra large. It's a more recent Nintendo game system. I'll try to plug this cartridge in here, power it up, and give you a look at that. Now this has a standard power on button on it, but the screens are enormous, really big. So get a lot of real estate on the screen there, which is awesome. And I happen to have a game in here right now, Marvel card game, but and then you could tilt it sideways, and obviously you know, both screens being utilized here. So that was cool, like that, and I like the big screen and the real estate you get there. Now on this one you can connect to the internet, watch videos, do all that stuff, get on your Netflix account and watch movies if you want. Then came the 3DS, and this is the 3DS right here. Another very solidly built issue from Nintendo. And I wanted to mention earlier that at some point the game system started to be made in Malaysia and then gradually China. The quality is still quite good, but I love have an affection for the old Japanese Game Boys. Anyway, this version was made in China, the 3DS, but and it takes a little slightly different cartridge, and I'll show you that in a minute, but it happens to have Super Mario 2 on it right now, so you can play in 3D. Here is the game cartridge. It's got this little notch in it, so I guess to differentiate the fact that it's a 3DS game. But yeah, so that's it. So here's some different sizes of the cartridges over the years. There's Mega Man, and then there's a Game Boy Color game. I believe that's compatible with Color. Then the advanced games, and now there's a 3DS game, and then I showed you earlier the standard size game. So kind of the evolution of the Game Boy game system with maybe a couple of different iterations missing, but this covers most of it. Just the advanced missing here and some of the early DS versions. But all in all, pretty cool. I collect them. They're not expensive. The new ones are more expensive, obviously, but to find the old stuff, not bad. You're not going to go broke doing that. So have fun, and if you like Nintendo like I do, this is a great hobby. Take care.